This is Suit Up Sports. Suit Up Sports. Where opinions are as sharp as a tailored suit. No fluff, no gimmicks, just unfiltered, hard-hitting takes on sports and a whole lot more. It's time to suit up. Now here's your host, DJ the Suit Stout.
Welcome to Suit Up Sports. I'm DJ the Suit Stout, along with 10-year NFL vet Frank Garcia. Frank, how you doing, brother?
I've been doing good, my man. I just got through with some football practice and just getting ready for the spring ball, and golf is in the air, and it's just it's been a great couple of weeks.
It has, man, and we were both off last week, but obviously NFL draft, which we're going to dive into pretty strongly. We had the Rookie of the Year announced last night, where we're going to dive into strongly. And we'll start with the NFL draft. But I got to vent real quick, man, because today I've been all over Charlotte with meetings and having to bust my ass to get here and bust my ass to get there. And I've said this for years, and today just solidified it. If you're driving, I don't give a damn what state you're in. I don't give a fuck what city you're in. If you there's 3 cars, if you get behind, you might as well add 10 to 15 minutes to your trip. First one, by far, is a Subaru. If you get behind a fucking Subaru, you're going to be sitting there literally 10 to 15 minutes. And the good news, I guess, is while you're behind the Subaru, it gives you time because you're going so slow, you could read all the 500 stickers they have on the back of them.
Going hiking.
Yeah, most of them say Bernie Sanders for some reason. The second one is a damn Prius or any of those little bullshit electric cars. They go slow as hell. Same thing, bumper stickers all over there. I don't know how they see out of their back window because they probably don't have freaking cameras on them. And then the third one is a damn Mini Cooper. If you get behind any of those 3, and the only thing that makes it worse is if any of those 3 have a South Carolina license plate.
It doesn't matter. Well, I think you have to also put in there who's driving those cars.
Well, but
if a woman is driving,
but even the guys, because let me tell you something, and no offense, because I got buddies that have all 3 of those cars, but the guys that drive those cars drive like the women that drive those cars. It's unbelievable.
There's not much difference.
And by the way,
he, her.
Yeah,
they should say he, her.
Right. And I know you've driven with me enough. I've made you car sick.
I was about ready to tell you.
Yeah, I'm in a rush even when I'm not. Right, I get it. Get that from a dad.
I've gotten car sick with him in the front seat of his pickup truck on the way to a Panthers game. And we weren't even late. I mean, it was just the start.
I'm always in a rush.
And he was in and out. He is a New York driver, cursing up a storm, just getting up on somebody's tailgate and just riding them. And so I can't imagine.
Big D sitting over here going, oh, yeah. I get, when I pass the person, I always give them the, get over. And I try to do that anymore now because people are pulling out guns.
I'm going to add one to the list.
Yeah.
Is the Sunday bikers on Carmel Road.
For Christ's
or
sake.
on Ray Road.
Don't talk about them, man. They get pissed.
Well, they will come out. I've seen a biker driving off of 51, in traffic at 4:00, and these bikes think they own the road.
Oh, yeah.
And a car was, sitting there and, maybe went around him a little too closely. This biker got out, got off his bike, took his water bottle off and just started squirting. Luckily the window was up, and it was an older lady. And I'm like, this guy is having road rage on an old lady as he's on a bike.
Man, I'm going to tell you something. And I've got a lot of my buddies that are cyclists. So I do respect the cyclists, but I'm going to tell you something. One of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Gas.
Well, I'm with you. I'm not going to ride one. I don't want that little banana seat up my ass for fucking 2 hours.
That hurts.
Oh, but I'll tell you a funny quick story. When I was running radio stations, this was probably 15, 16 years ago, Colin Powell's son was the head of the FCC, and he was coming to Charlotte. They would go around where people could come and to the government center, and they could complain about their local TV or radio stations and try to get them in trouble, whatever it was. So my boss at the time was like, all the managers were going, just it's educational. We're going to go. So we go, and we went to a bar for about 4 hours before we went there. I'll make sure I preface it with that. So we were all feeling no pain.
You were already on
there. We were feeling no pain. So we're sitting there in our suits, we're being quiet, and all of a sudden, and you would get in line to talk to Colin Powell's son. Well, about 100 people get in line, and I'm looking at these people, I'm like, good God, who pissed these dudes off? And they all had little psych bikes on their lapels, like these little bike things. Boy. And so they get up there one by one, and there was a morning show in Raleigh, and the morning show they hated the cyclist. And so they said, from now on, when you go by a cyclist, freaking hit him in the ass with something or throw something. Like they were shitting all over him. And these cyclists were telling stories of things that happened to them after these guys said it. One guy got hit in the ass with a wiffle ball bat. And so as they're telling these stories, now I'm starting to laugh.
Yeah.
And if I get into a laughing fit, I can't stop it.
Especially if you've been drinking.
And the one that got me was when and these guys were like tearing up and shit. The one dude said, and he's choked up and he goes, and a guy drove by and hit me in the ass with a Yoo-Hoo bottle. And when he said Yoo-Hoo bottle, I freaking lost it. And everyone's looking at me. My boss just looked at me and said, get out. Get out. And I went out and they met me at the bar afterwards. But yeah, the bikers don't mess around, dude. You piss them off.
Well, but here's the thing. I mean, it's such a, like, they fight in packs, they ride in packs. You know, my question is, and I really don't even know. I mean, I would love to find out someday, because I've had this conversation, before, and I've had so many cyclists call in, and they were mad and they were angry. But like, how do you determine where you're going to meet? Like, and then who's in charge of where you go? Like, do you turn right? Do you turn left? Do you have a road map? I mean, is there a head cyclist that has won like the Tour de France that's leading you?
I don't know.
How do you determine these things? Because there's like 40 bikes, and they're all just hoarding.
Yeah.
At like 7:30 in the morning on this.
Yeah, they only do it during drive time.
Only during, yeah.
Yeah, like do it at 10 o'clock at night.
Do it on a weekend where nobody's out, or something where you could just get out of the way. But you always should get out of the way of a car that's coming at 50 miles an hour when you're going 20.
I think I'd rather follow a horde of cyclists than I would a Subaru, a Prius, or a Mini Cooper.
Oh,
but
God.
Regardless,
Yeah.
I digress. Let's go from talking cyclists to Mack trucks.
Yeah.
And the Panthers brought in a plethora of Mack trucks. And let's start off with the first round. And there's a bunch I want to dive into, because you and I, and our buddy Nico and a couple other guys were on text the entire draft, like we were Mel Kiper Juniors breaking it down. But
we had so many texts back and forth.
Oh.
And I will say this. I usually am a contrarian to the end of the day. You were as close to spot on with this draft of predictions that I felt like, sitting on my side without sitting next to you, where I was at, I was like, is he watching this draft before? Because you were calling every pick that they were making, literally almost to the man who they picked. I know we had some back and forth with some safeties and some other positions and, some different players. But when it came to the Panthers, you named the position, maybe it wasn't this guy, but it was the guy right behind him, and you were so spot on. So I'm giving you credit for
thank you.
How much you dove into this and how on top of it you were.
Well, I love the draft, as I know you do. And this year I did, man. I just couldn't read enough. And so, with the first pick for the Panthers, most people, including myself, thought it was going to come down to Sadiq, the tight end from Oregon, or Thieneman, the safety from Oregon, which I would have been fine with either one of them. Well, the Jets take Sadiq at 14, which surprised me because they got Jason Taylor's son, who's a damn good first-year tight end. I think
they might have even traded to get up to that spot, if I'm not mistaken. Jets had a great draft, by the way. As bad as their season has been, as bad as they've been in general, I think they hit a home. They might have had the best draft of anybody.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that too as well. But the one thing that I thought was that if they weren't going to take Thieneman, who was there when we picked, I thought he was going to be the guy. But when you've got Icky, who's coming off an injury, and even though they brought in, a very good left tackle on a one-year deal, I just didn't know how they'd pass up a left tackle. And regardless, there was several there they could have taken, but Freeland is the one that I love from day one. When you're 6'7", 315, run a 5.0, you're young, you've got 17 starts on your belt. And
went to Georgia. You played in the SEC.
Exactly.
You blocked every one of these guys that got drafted in front of you.
Every one of them.
At the Senior Bowl, at the bowl games that they played in, he was one of the guys that was a standout.
Yep. And I'm gonna tell you something. They have a thing called the RAS score, which you probably saw in the draft, relative athletic score, where they basically have all these categories they grade you in, from your height, your weight, your 40, your vertical, all these different stats, right? And then they compare it to players going back the last 3 decades just to see where you fit as an athlete, right? Doesn't mean you're going to be a lock player, because we've seen freaks of nature that didn't pan out. But if you look at the guys that have scored well on this, there's a really good chance that they turn out to be at least a pretty good player. Dude, he scored a 9.99. The highest you can get to 10. He was in the top 5 of any position. And to put that in perspective, Sonny Styles was a 9.9.
Everybody was ranting and raving how he was a generational talent and breaking all the records at the combine for at a middle linebacker position at 6'5", 240 pounds, and not sure whether to put him at safety or where he could. I mean, the guy could play anywhere, pretty much
anywhere. And then our 6'7", 315 dude scores a 9. Caleb Downs was a 9.3. Mauga, the left tackle that went to the Giants, 9.7. So you're looking Evo Reese, the guy that the Giants took, 9.8. So this dude was in the top 5 in the RAS score. And he's a left tackle who's young and still learning. But I agreed with Dan. Like, how do you pass him up? And when you add a left tackle on a team, which again, and you and I text about this, the future of Ickey is not only uncertain because of his injury, but he's in the final year of his deal. So you either got to re-sign him next year to a big contract as a left tackle, let him go, or move him to right tackle. Who knows what they're going to do? But this just gives you a hell of a lot of flexibility, and hopefully you're Jordan Gross for the next 10 years.
Well, that's right. And I think that's the thing that stands out to me. I mean, if we want to talk about the draft in general, or we want to talk specifically about the Panthers, the one thing I think that the common denominator is the size and speed of these athletes that are coming out today, and the young and how young they are. A lot of guys are leaving earlier, coming out their junior year. But, DJ, when I look at the offensive line that we're taking, and when I was playing, this was 25, 30 years ago, the draft, that's 30 years ago. So it's 3 decades. It was a lot different than it is now.
Yeah.
6'2", 290, was a average center, right? If you're not 6'4", 6'5" today, and you're not at least 300 pounds, and you don't run at least the 5 flat, these guys are getting so big, so fast, so strong, and it's not big, fat guys.
Right.
These guys look like they are 290 pounds at 6'6", 340, 350 pounds.
Yeah.
Right. And, the size of and the speed of these guys that are playing is incredible. I think in the 5th round or 6th round, we took a center that's 6'5", 300. They're tight ends, bodies that are converting to offensive linemen. They're just eating more.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what they look like. They look like
they're training for the NFL from the time they're 13 years old.
They look like they're basketball players, right, that are playing football. And the difference is that their demeanor, their attitude, their technique, like you said, they've been trained. Now there's offensive line camps. There's defensive line camps. Everybody it's a much more sports specific thing now than it ever has been. And bigger, faster, stronger used to mean something, and it still does. I mean, if you're a first rounder, but this guy was at the top of the list with bigger, faster, stronger. Yeah. And on top of that, he played at Georgia. Guess what Georgia does? They're a balanced offense. It's not a spread offense. It's going to run some gadgety thing. They're going to play a pro-style offense. They're going to run the football. They're going to throw play action, and they're going to play Carolina Panthers. Not only does his size and athleticism near the top of the list or the top of the list when it comes to the offensive linemen, the style in which they played and the competition level of which they played. Every guy that was drafted before him, except for maybe the Ohio State guys, maybe this year, but last year they may have played, he's played against. So they have film to see this guy. I think it's a great pick. I'm super excited about him. Whether he's going to play left tackle or right tackle, that's to be determined. But you're going to have 5 athletes. We have 2 guards that are highly paid, that are near the top of their position when it comes to guards. Moton, I think, is a really good right tackle. He's very physical. He's a 6'7" guy, 6'8" guy, 320 pounds, 330 pounds.
Yeah.
Now you're going to match that. Ickey, to me, was probably the biggest question mark, not just last year, but years past, especially when it came to pass protection of, he's not a guy that really is a stereotypical offensive left tackle, right? In today's football. 20 years ago, he would have been like, the dude from the Seahawks. They're all-world left tackle that played 20 years. Yeah. Great athlete, Jones. Right? Yeah, Jones. Yeah. Orlando Pace, 6'8". Jones was a 6'4" guy, 320 pounds, but he was as athletic as a guy you're going to find playing basketball. So that's kind of what Ickey was. He was more of a guard to me. And I think this is a stereotypical left tackle, right tackle type of guy that you can put out there for the next 10 years, and he is going to provide whatever quarterback's going to be back, behind him. The issue that I have right now is our line is going to be so massive and our quarterback is going to be so small that, it's going to be difficult for him to see over the top.
Well, we're going to get to another pick in a minute that I wanted to ask you about that exact topic.
At center in particular.
That's the one.
Yep.
Let's move to the second round. And honestly, out of all the picks, and I love this draft, this was my favorite one. Lee Hunter, the defensive tackle out of Texas Tech, 6'3", 318, runs a 4.95. I watched Texas Tech play quite a bit this year, and the game against Oregon in the playoffs, obviously Bailey, their defensive end, who was drafted second by the Jets, is a beast. But the one that kept flashing to me every time I'd watch him was this big dude in the middle, Hunter. And I remember against Oregon that there was a stretch of plays where he was unstoppable. And it's funny, all these guys we drafted, when I went through all these different breakdowns of the draft and all these things, the words that come up for our guys, Hunter, goal line monster, violent, wrecking ball, each guy, physical, violent, chaos. And it just goes to, we've always talked about how the Panthers didn't have a blueprint. They didn't have a culture. They didn't have a game plan. And then Dan comes in, and Canals comes in, and they start establishing one. And now you see when Dan, I think his first ever press conference said, I want dogs on this team. Mm-hmm. And now we keep seeing these guys. And Lee Hunter was the number one defensive tackle versus the run in college football
for the last 2 years.
2 years with pressures, you name it. His pass rush has not got there yet, even though he's disruptive. That'll come. Derek Brown, if you remember, out of Auburn, that was the one thing they said, and we've seen him get better at that as we come. But it's going to be really hard to run the ball at the middle against this team for the first time in a long time with Hunter and Brown next to each other, not to mention Wharton, some of these other big dudes we have that hopefully play up to the potential that may not have last year. But I love Lee Hunter, and his nickname's the Fridge. And I know the original Refrigerator Perry is going to be hard to ever replicate, and he was a hell of a lot bigger than 6'3", but this dude's a beast.
Now, Fridge was only like 6'1", but he was 320.
I thought he was tall. Yeah,
no,
okay.
So he was back then.
Yeah.
Though, when he was playing, he was a wrecking ball for sure. But Lee Hunter is very similar in the way that he plays the game. The one thing that stands out to me when I watch his film, when you look at the highlights that he has and you look at the games that he's played in, is how violent and aggressive he is with his hands.
Yeah.
He has incredibly strong, heavy hands, is what you're looking for on the offensive line or defensive line, in particular on the inside. He strikes with his hands out in front to gain control. He uses them. He's very quick with them, and then he can shift and move to get to either side. So he's a great two-gapper in any defense that can get to the ball. He goes vertically or laterally down the line extremely well. He's extremely athletic. He kind of reminds me of a less slippery Warren Sapp, right? Warren Sapp was 6'2", 285, 290 pounds. Obviously, he's bigger, but Warren was so good with his hands, so slippery to get up the field. It'll be interesting to see how the Panthers use him because, if they're going to run the 3-4, the odd defense and put him at the nose, he can control the center. Yeah. They're not going to run the ball in the A-gaps, right, for the most part. Double teams, he's going to have to fight through those, right? Yeah, I think he's had trouble fighting double teams because he's
actually his numbers against double team was actually better than I thought. They were pretty good, but with Derek Brown next to him, you got to think he won't see that.
And that's the thing, and that's where I was going with that, is that and now you add that combination of what I was talking to you about. Who are you going to double? You can't double them both, right? Because then you're going to have these outside guys and your linebackers running free. So Derek Brown is going to become a better player, because of it, and he will be a better player because of Derek Brown. You're going to have as good as interior defenses that you've had in a long time. And I know we've talked about linebackers, and I think that getting the guy from Jacksonville is going to be a great addition. A big physical guy.
Athletic.
We talk about building a pyramid, right, and the triangle for defense. Right. I don't care what sport it is, football, basketball, baseball. You better be strong up the middle, right? That diamond better be strong. That better be the center, your safeties, your linebackers, and your interior two guys. That better be the focal point. Baseball, your shortstop, your second base, your center fielder, their catcher. You better have the best defensive players there, right? Yep. And I don't care what sport it is, soccer, your midfielder, your sweeper, you got to be strong your holding defender, right? Whatever, you have to be strong in the middle. And I think the Panthers right now getting him as their pick will be as strong as anybody that is playing the game today. They have improved more at that position and that part of their game than any other team in the NFL. And we talk about, I know I give you hell all the time about everybody's going to get better at the same rate. I think the Panthers got a little bit better than everybody else at just that diamond that we're talking about. They improved where they were weak last year in the middle linebacker.
The Lloyd Roseboom upgrade is just
that's a 4 versus an 8,
right?
Or a 9. That's a 5. That's a 4 or 5 point differential. And when I'm talking 4 or 5, I'm talking about levels of play, right? I mean, you're talking about a Pro Bowl versus a guy that shouldn't even be on the field.
Right. And then you bring in Hunter, as you talked about, and then Morik, who we brought in last year, who had a hell of a first year. So you're right. Like the center of that field, the center of the defense now is 3 layers deep. That's where we haven't been able to say that, especially about the second layer in quite some time.
And not only that, you brought in a leader that's going to be able to diagnose and call plays and put guys in position. When you have young, it's easier to play young guys on defense than it is young guys on offense, right? Because find ball, see ball, tackle ball, be athletic, go get it, and pin your hair back. Fill your gap, make sure you do your responsibility, and then go eat, right?
Yeah.
For offense, there's a lot more to it, right? I mean, there's moving parts. You have to know motions. You have to know defenses. You have to have a little bit more cerebral capacity, especially when motions are involved and you're in a complex offense. So, but for the defensive side, you have a middle linebacker that can control the center of the defense. You have a safety that can control the secondary. And, Derek Brown is a guy that's going to make sure that, his guys are accountable on the defensive line. So I think defensively, this team has improved with just that pick alone to a point where it is going to be as competitive as any team in the league.
Yeah, I think their defense is going to take another big step as they did last year. But then again, 2 years ago, they were the worst defense in the history of the NFL.
Well, so I mean, and that's what Dan's a defensive guy.
Right, and he fixed the offensive line his first year. He fixed, or at least made the upgrades to the defense the second year. And this year now we're seeing hopefully the fruits of all that come together.
So, like I said, it's so much easier to get better quicker on the defensive side than it is the offense. You find young speed, you find angry guys, you find athletic guys, and you find guys that are going to hunt and be relentless and be in a bad mood when they get there to the ball. And I think that's what you found. I love his tenacity, the way that he is, gets after the ball. And when he gets there, he's not just trying to tackle, he's trying to bury you.
Yeah, he is. Let's move to the offensive side of the ball for a second with our 3rd round pick, who, again, if Hunter's my favorite pick, this is the pick I'm most intrigued by, which is Chris Brazzell, the wide receiver from Tennessee, 6'4", 198, runs a 4.37. Had 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns this year on a Tennessee team that underperformed.
Didn't have a great quarterback.
But the thing that people like,
they lost their quarterback to UCLA, if you remember. They brought in a guy,
the kid from App State,
a guy late that really
Aguilar.
Yeah, that really he did okay.
There's a lot of interceptions.
He didn't really grasp the offense, so there wasn't the continuity that and Heupel's a great coach. He's a great offensive mind, but he didn't grasp the concepts, maybe necessarily. But this kid right here is a physical freak standout.
Yeah, and here's the thing about
could have been a first rounder very easily.
Well, a lot of people had him projected late first, early second. So the fact we got him in the 3rd round is definitely worth a swing. And a lot of people like to say, well, with Heupel's offense in Tennessee, it's gadget. There's nothing like it in the NFL. If you look at some of the Tennessee receivers that have come out, I can bring up Hyatt, who was a 2nd round pick by the Giants, who didn't do anything, but they just run out. So they just do this. Well, the thing about Brazzell is he played at Tulane first, and where they ran a pro offense. And you can go look at his tape there and you can see that he runs the route tree. He's not just a big, tall target that can fly. And one of the things that you and I talked about last year with this offense was that we had nobody that could stretch the field. You would harp on it that, as good as Tet was and as good as Coker came on during the year, it was tough for our quarterback when defenses were just going to press up, that they weren't scared that anybody was going to beat them deep. So we couldn't stretch the defense. This kid right here is going to stretch the hell out of the defense. Now, we just have to hope he can catch it, which he's shown he has through college. Great hands. If you look at his tape against Alabama or Georgia in particular, or at Tulane, this guy was catching balls out of thin air, and he can fly. To be 6'4", almost 200 pounds, running a 4.37. If this kid can turn into what we hope he can, he's going to stretch the field, which is going to only make Tet better. It's only going to make Coker better. And hopefully it only makes our tight ends better, because we need a tight end to step up. But he's intriguing as hell, and definitely worth a shot in the 3rd round.
And not only that, I think the thing that when you look at the Carolina Panthers, on the offensive side, they're as tall and athletic as maybe 3 or 4 other teams, might be more, right? But they are top 5 teams when it comes to their length, their height, and their speed. They have increased their speed tremendously. You look at their line across the board. The only guy bringing them down is their guard who's 6'2", 6'3", but he's 330 pounds, 340, and he's an all-pro guy. Right. Now you got a 6'6", you got a 6'8", you got a 6'5" center. I mean, you got size across the board up front. You got mini quarterback. But that's okay. I mean, but look at your receivers right now: 6'4", 6'4", 6'5". Right. Those are your top 3 receivers if this guy steps in. I think Hunter is a guy that also can contribute because there's 2 ways to get separation in the NFL. You either stops fast or you start fast, right? You get separation. And if you can do both, like a Tyreek Hill, you can stop and start or run fast and then stop, right? You create separation, right? And if you run 6'3", or if you run 4'3" and you're 6'4", you're going to create that hesitation in DBs, because the worst thing that they can do, the worst thing that happen to DB is somebody run by them, right? Because that puts the fear of God in them, and it embarrasses them on national TV, right? So they're going to give cushion to guys that can just fly, and that means wonders for guys running underneath routes. But I think that's where you find either a back out of the backfield that can run those little ETN, or you look at the kid from Colorado that can come in there.
Well,
and
don't forget either James Brooks, the running back who's missed, last year.
We haven't seen him yet. Enough of him yet.
Today he had a press conference where he said he's been cleared.
Okay, but we haven't seen enough of him at this level.
I'm just saying that he could be the guy.
There's a lot of options.
He's basically a draft pick, is what
there's
I'm saying.
He's
basically a draft.
There's
pick.
a lot of options. And there's going to be so much. The reason why I think I wanted a tight end that could run those underneath routes, open the middle of the field up. Travis Kelce, he understands the game pretty well, is because of what we're talking about. But if you're going to put a guy like Tet's going to catch 100 balls this year.
Yeah, I mean, he also said he's gained 10 pounds of muscle, which is what he played in college. He gained a little bit more speed. So
he's going to catch 100 balls this year, and he's going to have a year going against the jam, which he's never had in college.
Would you move him? Because I've read a bunch about this.
The slot.
Would you move him to slot? Because if you look at his numbers at slot last year, he was almost.
I want him to be my number one Puka Nacua from the inside. I don't need him to be in a Brown where he just runs one route, or a guy on the outside they just run the deep ball, right? I need him to be a guy that is going to be an option route guy that can stop, start. He understands the game. He has great hands. He's reliable. He's consistent. He needs to be a guy that catches 100 balls to 110 balls, and everybody else is going to clear the distance for him, right? You got Coker, who could be a number one. You have this kid that could be a number one. They're both 6'4". They both fly. And you can open up the edges and just let him run a little option route, a little dig, whatever it might be. I think Tet runs the routes better than these guys, and him and Bryce have a better feel. He would be my Wes Welker in a taller version at 6'5", 200 pounds, versus Wes, who's 5'8", 190 pounds, and the little scat guy. Tet can still do those things and do them really well. Yeah.
Let's move to the defense again. In the 4th round, we took Will Lee III out of Texas A&M, 6'1", 189, ran a 4.45. This kid, the more I didn't know who he was. He was not a guy that was showing up in my top 4 or 5 of guys that I wanted the Panthers to get. So as I went back and read about him, and then as I watched film, I even sent you a couple of them where you even replied, "Look, damn!" I mean, first of all, the dude is, to use these words, he's violent, he's mean, he's tough, he's a dog. He loves to stick his head in there. But he's long for a corner. He evidently excels in press coverage, which he did get beat on a couple long balls last year. But I read about those.
Listen, if you're going to press up, if you're going to be aggressive, and you're going to jam the shit out of guys, you're going to get beat sometimes.
Right.
I mean, those guys on the other side, they're pretty good too, right? And they're athletic. But you learn how to do that better with better technique, and then you learn how to do it with timing and when it's time, and how you study your opponent. The one thing that these guys from college to pros are going to be able to do differently is they have great coaching staffs, if they have good position coaches, is they're going to learn the technique that it takes to run routes on the offensive side, how to run the route tree, because I think that's the biggest knock on most of the guys coming out of college. They're in these spread offenses. They run digs. They run about 3 or 4 routes. That's it.
Yeah.
Right. But they do it better than everybody else because they're faster, bigger, faster, stronger. At this level, you're not bigger, faster, stronger. Everybody's the same. You better work on your weaknesses.
Yeah.
And this kid, he's 6'1", almost 6'2".
Yeah.
200 pounds. He's physical. I want to put him on offense and put him at a slot and let him go block as a receiver because he is taking receivers back and driving them into the ground.
You even said when we drafted him as we were going back and forth that and they're not going to do this, but it's a valid point. You said, hell, they could move him to safety.
Yeah.
I mean, with his size and the way he pops, and we ended up taking one we'll talk about here in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, this is another guy that at least fits the mold of a dog who's tough and physical.
He plays the corner position like a linebacker.
Yeah, he's
right. And that's probably the best way to describe it.
If you haven't watched this film, go watch it because this dude drives dudes to the ground. I mean, he does not mess around.
And I know Michael Jackson had a great year last year, right? He was probably
really the last 2 years.
He was probably the biggest, most improved guy we had on our roster. He went from like, who the hell is this? Like the singer? I thought he was dead, right? To, that guy's making plays, right?
Yeah.
He was our best corner, right? He was consistent. He was there to play.
Yeah.
He made plays in the playoff. I mean,
yeah.
He was our best corner. He was better than he played better last year than J.C. Horn did because J.C. Horn was hurt half the year, right? J.C. Horn can be a guy that steps in, but now you add that Michael Jackson. If Michael Jackson can repeat what he did last year and carry that over into this year, you put him, Horn, there's no doubt you can put this guy as a drop down safety in a nickel or a dime where he can play the run, which he does very well, or he can drop and play deep third because his biggest knock was he ran like a 4.51, 4.5.
Which 4.45 is not that slow.
No, I thought he ran a 4.5.
Now, what I pulled up when I was going through all my notes.
Anyways, I mean,
regardless, he's not a 4.3.
He's not a blazer. He's not a 4.3 guy,
right.
Which top corners are going to be. That may be the reason why he dropped to the fourth round, fifth round. But he is a guy that can be physical and play a nickel or dime, and it gives you another ball hawker and dog on the field. So if you want to go dime, it's one linebacker. Five DBs, you could drop him in the box very easily, or Morg in the box and drop him deep, whatever it is, because Morg, I think, is more physical and aggressive downhill. Or if you want to play nickel, that's two backers with four, and you could put him as one of those other corners or a deep safety to just let him ball hop.
Well, nickel was a problem for the Panthers last year. Charles Smith-Wade, who was a pick the year
couldn't
before
cover
that,
me.
And he had a bad year.
He couldn't cover me.
I think we're going to at least see Lee get an opportunity to step in there, and we'll see what he does. The fifth round pick, and the Panthers are, I went through 20 different analyst grades. Panthers were A or A minus, B plus at the worst. This kid was the one that everyone loved the most, and that's Sam Heck, the center out of Kansas State, 6'4", 310. And this dude, number one, from a mental standpoint, is off the charts. And so when you were talking earlier about being able to process on offense for a young guy, this dude, his strengths, and he played in the Senior Bowl too, which we always are there, and the Panthers take that very serious. But they said he's one of the smartest protection callers they've seen. Very physical. In the Senior Bowl, and I don't think they're going to do that here, but they actually tried him at guard for a while. And there's a play that I saw where he actually threw Hunter on his ass in the Senior Bowl, which is pretty impressive. This kid, I think, has the opportunity to start right away. I know we brought in a center, and we signed a center off the Ravens practice squad last year, who a lot of people think highly of. But I think this kid's going to start from day one, if not day one, very soon.
I don't know if he'll necessarily be a starter, but he will be a rotation guy. And he gives you a lot of depth on the inside. He can play either guard or center, right? Which is very valuable to a team when you're trying to look at numbers on game day. When it comes down to who are that seven? Do I draft 7 offensive linemen or 8 offensive linemen? If I don't have a center that can play both guards or a tackle that can play guard or tackle, then I have to dress 8 guys. If I have a tackle that can play either position, a guard that can play either position, or even center, then I can use 7, and I can use pieces to be more advantageous for me on a Sunday with that 50, with the active roster, right? I can bring in another receiver. I can have another running back. I can have another linebacker, because our linebacker, it just gives you so many options on game day. And I think this guy is that guy. He reminds me of a guy that we had here in 2002, 2003 that came from the Ravens as well. Jeff Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
He was a more athletic guy, not real physical, not at the point of attack, but he's athletic. He's going to get on an edge. He's going to drive you into the ground. He's going to play aggressive, but he just may not be that dominating center that you're looking for as a top tier guy. But he's 6'4", 305 pounds. He can run like the wind. He can play guard. He can play center. And, even sometimes, the technique that is used by most offensive lines in the NFL, if you play center, you can play tackle. And at 6'5", 300 pounds.
You mean guard?
No, you can play tackle.
Oh, tackle.
That's the technique is very similar at
Okay.
center than it is at tackle. The kick steps and what you do at that position. So, you just might not be 6'8". Right. You might be 6'5" versus 6'8". That's the difference. You might have long arms, right? You might not be the most athletic. This guy's athletic enough where he can play all 5 positions.
I think this dude's going to end up being a Pro Bowler. I really do. And we'll see. That's a lot of, a lot of people that I was reading, guys that really had no ties to the Panthers, were calling him Ryan Khalil light.
Yep.
So if he turns out to be close to what Ryan,
if you remember, Ryan Khalil started at guard.
Right.
When
he was a second round pick. This kid got in the fifth,
yeah.
which everyone had him going late third or fourth. So
the Panthers got steals, especially when if you took a center in the third round, fourth round, fifth round, some of these guys typically would have been, back 20 years ago would have been, second rounders, third rounders, even there wasn't a center taken in the first round. Right? They're not one center take, and that I don't know.
Slaughter was the first center taken out of Florida, and I think that was in the second round, if I'm not mistaken.
Late second, middle second, wherever it was. I mean, but typically you're going to have these guys would have been first rounders 15, 20 years ago, but the game has changed so much that people are looking for tight ends now. They're looking for they're looking for covered guys. They're looking for guys that can hunt the passer, and they're looking for guys that are going to be a difference maker at the tight end position. Yep.
Let's go to the fifth round, or excuse me, the next pick at 185, because I know we got to hustle through here. Zakee Wheatley, the safety from Penn State, 6'3", 198. This kid, all the stuff I read about him from their coaches, from the analysts to the scouts, say that this is a kid that not only improves so much every year and works hard. He's a thumper. He's a hitter, and with good range. But again, the word that kept coming out was violent tackler. And everyone also said about this kid is that he's not yet even close to reaching his potential. And all he does is improve and improve and improve. We know that Nick Scott last year, another Penn State kid, had an okay year at safety, but we all would agree that was a spot that we felt if we could improve it. I'm not saying that Wheatley is going to step in and start, because I don't think he will, but it at least gives us somebody else now in that rotation, along with Ransom, who we picked last year, I believe, in the 4th or 5th round out of Ohio State. But again, if you keep reading the traits of these dudes that we're talking about, they all have a lot of the same qualities. They're big, long,
6'3", 200 for the safeties and corners.
Yeah,
every one of our corners right now 6'2" or above.
Yep.
Every one of our safeties except for Morg. Morg is I think 5'10", 5'11".
I think he's probably,
I'm not sure. I mean, I may be mistaken, but everybody else that we've drafted is going to be 6'2" or above.
It's the Seattle. Listen, Dan came from Seattle. It's the Seattle model, and God knows we've seen what they've done.
Who's the kid they took from South Carolina that I love?
However the hell I never can say his last name.
I mean, he was the big. He was the biggest difference maker, and I would have loved for the Panthers to take him. He reminded me of Cam Chancellor so much that he could play that drop down linebacker, a safety in the box, right? Where in a nickel defense, it basically gives you another linebacker, but he had the athleticism and speed to get back into coverage and cover that deep third, which is a tremendous, tremendous help for defenses and coordinators, because now they can disguise, they can use different packages. And it brings nightmares for offensive quarterbacks, linebackers, and our centers, and even receivers that have to diagnose: is this guy playing, this coverage, or is he going to drop it? Is he going to look like he's playing this coverage and drop back to the deep third? And that's what a guy like that can do. Yeah, I'm excited about him, too, to see what happens with him at worst first year, maybe special teams. And then the 7th round pick, which I know, for a 7th round pick to even make the team is a long shot. Yeah, you never know. 7th rounders are if you're going to get drafted in the 7th round, the position you want to be drafted by the Carolina Panthers is that linebacker. No doubt. And Jackson Kuwatch, who, again, was in the Senior Bowl.
and Dan Morgan and the coaching staff was there. The kid had over, I think, 110 tackles this year. He's known as a great blitzer from the linebacker position. 6'4", 232, ran a 4.65, which I know that's not blazing speed,
For
but
a middle linebacker, that's pretty damn good.
Especially 6'4", 232. But the word that everything I read about this guy was that great pursuit, great blitzer,
effort,
was actually really good in
tenacity.
coverage. The word chaos was there a lot. And so, when you're talking about Dan Morgan being a defensive guy and a great linebacker, if you're going to take a guy in the 7th round, especially on a team that needs more linebacker depth, take a shot on this dude.
How many tackles did Dan Morgan have in the Super Bowl? 24?
It was over. I mean, it's still a record, I believe.
Dan Morgan played the position with his hair on fire.
Right.
And I can respect that. I played against Dan. I know how hard he played.
Yep.
I know the type of player he's looking for, right? Because I see the same kind of traits in guys that I coach and guys that I love watching. The kid from Arizona State, the left tackle from Arizona, or the right tackle from Arizona State, the Steelers picks.
Oh, yeah.
It was my favorite player, offensive lineman anyways, in the draft. Every time he wanted to get that last shove in.
Yeah.
If you know kind of thing, right? And if you played the game and you know that prick that's standing on the other side, all right, fuck him. Yeah. I'm going to beat him. He takes you out of your mindset because you know that he's going to try to kick your ass.
Right.
And that's the type of guys that Dan Morgan drafted on defense, whether they're corners, whether they're safeties, whether they're linebackers, whether they're defensive line. He drafted cocksuckers that are going to kick your ass and come after you. And he's going to have 11 of them. That's like army ants. I tell this story all the time to my guys. It's like one army ant by itself. If you go out there, what are you going to do to the ant? You're going to stomp on them. But if you put 11 of them, you put a colony of them, they're going to take down houses. They're going to eat cattle. They're going to destroy the forest.
Yeah.
And he's drafted army ants that are going to go out there and find a way to bite, claw, scrap, do whatever it takes to win. And I can't wait to watch it, honestly.
I can't even look, like I said, we got to wrap up in 2 minutes, but the undrafted free agency sign, which we've had good luck with that with Coker. And I mean, last year we had a couple make the team. The guy that I really love in that group, and I'm not saying he's going to end up being a starting quarterback, but I love the fact that Dan went and got him is King, the quarterback for Georgia Tech, who was the ACC Offensive Player of the Year, came from, I believe, Colorado maybe, or I forget where he was, not Colorado. I forget where he transferred from off the top of my head. Regardless, 6'4", big, can run. I think he ran for over 750 yards last year, threw for another bunch. It's a big quarterback.
It brings competitiveness to your practice, but because he's not going to beat Bryce Young out. He's not going to beat
Pickett.
What's that?
Pickett.
He's not going to be. I mean, I'm not a big believer in Pickett, but he's not going to beat Bryce Young out, to start with. But he's going to be a guy that can give you some great reps in practice. He's going to be competitive, and he's a guy that might find that spark that you're looking for. And I don't, with the athleticism at that position.
And I don't know. And he's got a good arm, but I doubt he'll be on the 53 man roster. But the one thing I thought right away,
no, they're going to take 3 quarterbacks. So, at least.
And Will Greer, who they just signed, I think he's a practice arm. Will Greer's been around, Charlotte guy. But I will say this about King. The one thing that I thought of when we took him, and I knew that they liked him because we had brought him in. We went, I knew that they liked him. The one thing that I thought about right away is something that you talked about last year. And we talked about using a tight end, which they finally did. But on 4th and 1 or any short yards where Bryce can't get it, this kid can get it. And so even if you start off with him just having certain packages on short yardage to get a yard for a first down, I don't think he'll be on the starting field.
I mean, they're going to use a tight end. I mean, I think you only got so many bodies on Sunday.
That's the problem. But eventually it'll be interesting to just watch him during preseason.
What you're talking about though, DJ, is a guy that maybe turns into. I mean, nobody thought Tom Brady was going to make the team.
Yeah, you never know,
right? Nobody thought he was going to make the team. 7th rounder, 6th round, 7th round.
Jake Delhomme.
Jake Delhomme, another one, right?
Yeah.
So you never know until you know, and sometimes systems don't match guys' skill sets, and coaches can bring the best out of players, and sometimes you get a Steph Curry, right? Guy doesn't really look like he's going to be doing much in high school. All of a sudden, he goes to college and he blossoms. His nuts drop and he becomes Steph Curry, maybe one of the greatest of all time.
Yep. Real quick, because we got a minute left, so this has to be short answers. Rookie of the year, Cooper Flagg gets it. Con Knipple finished second. I think Cooper Flagg had 56 first place votes. Knipple had 44.
Close.
You and I think are on the same page on this. I think Con should have got the award because I think that our team made the playing game and close to the playoffs. Dallas was awful all year long. I think that the last 2.5 weeks of the season killed Con. I think when he got tired, and whether he was hurt or not, and Cooper went nuts the last month. They were feeding him the ball every time with Dallas to get him the award. I don't think you can go wrong either way. I do think both are going to have long careers. I do think Cooper Flagg is going to be one of the faces of the NBA. Con just set a record, only rookie to lead the NBA in three-pointers. Future's bright. I wish he would have got the award. I think he should have had the award. However, I can't argue that Cooper got it just because I think both players.
There's more to impact than just shooting three-pointers.
No question.
And you're not.
I think Con does more than that, but Cooper.
I understand.
Cooper,
you're 100%.
I know what
right.
your point is. Yeah.
Con plays great defense, but so does Cooper. They both play hard. They're both very deserving. Two of my favorite players from Duke. To come out of there in a long time. Cooper, the difference is, and you said it, and I've said it, and we've all, I think, would agree, Cooper Flagg is going to be the face of the NBA in 3 years.
At least one of them. I mean, I think Wemmy's going to be the face for the next 10 years because that dude is just super freak. But you're right. Flagg's going to be right there up there. He's going to be on the Mount Rushmore.
Cooper Flagg is going to be the NBA for all the white business owners of America. It's true.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not saying anything that I'm.
Well, and Dallas next year gets Kyrie Irving back to get Lively back.
I mean,
my point is,
he
they're
is
going to be better next year.
Cooper Flagg is going to be the face of the NBA for the guys that follow him, and Wemby's a great player too. He's going to be part of that, right? But I mean, Jordan had Pippen and Bird had Magic. There's always going to be a couple of guys out there, right? Cooper Flagg is going to be one of those guys. We're not going to talk about Con.
Right, Con could be an all-star every year.
Con is going to be an all. Yeah. He will be a great Pippen.
Yeah, and he had a better rookie year than anyone could have imagined.
Con is a great Pippen, but he's not Jordan.
Yeah, well
and Flagg is Jordan. Flagg is Jordan to Pippen, and they're both great players. They're both top. I mean, Jordan's the greatest of all time. I'm not saying that they're the same quality.
No, I know what you're saying.
But you understand the difference
I see
that I'm
saying.
making.
And look, if Con continues to build on what he did, every Hornet fan will take that for the next 10 years. They'd be elated.
100%.
Especially
but Con will never be
in the lottery about freaking NBA.
Con will never be. He's just not asked to do as much.
Right. And Cooper can run.
And that's why he got the MVP. Yeah, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't disagree with it. I wish Con would have got it. I think he should have got it, but I can't argue.
He was very deserving.
Got it. Yeah,
very deserving.
The last 2.5 weeks hurt him, and I think if he would have finished strong, we would have won it, or he would have won it. All right, we'll see you next week. Thank you for joining us. We'll put up the links for next week once we decide exactly what day we're doing.
YouTube, we got
YouTube's the main one, baby. Push this YouTube channel. That's what we want to push. You can also find wherever else you find
Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Go to all the spots. Check us out.
Thank you to Neogenics and our boy Nico, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers.